Oh, thank you. So starting off, Climate Health Now Action Fund's community meeting. It's already May, which is making me want to reach for the brakes wherever they are. I don't even know. But we are going to do some exciting letter to the editor writing and talking about today. So I wanted to acknowledge that it's May Day. Does anybody know any of the history of May Day? Catherine, you're sort of smiling. Do you know, have you heard of it or any background?
It has a history with, I think, World War II.
Yeah, or probably, or even before. I was doing a little research, so I had the up on it. But was there anything else that you knew about it?
It's kind of like a day of resistance.
Yeah, totally. Totally. We need that more than ever.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I was looking this up and I supplemented with Wikipedia. But I guess it started, what I read said that it started in the 1880s related to workers like fighting for having a limit to the work day to be 8 hours, not more. And apparently they're in this like protest for an 8-hour workday. There was a bomb and like some police violence. So that was, I think, what kind of gelled it as a day. But then when I've been in Europe, there's a lot of like labor workers' rights feelings around May Day, which I just wanted to acknowledge. So power to the people. That's what we're all about. Happy May Day. So what we will cover in this hour, we're going to hear from Michelle, some updates of the Polluters Pay Climate Superfund bills that are going through the state legislature. Then we will celebrate, which we don't do enough. We will celebrate a really awesome op-ed that Brenda and Cindy had published in several media outlets, the SAC-B, the San Luis Obispo Tribune, and a couple of others. So we'll hear how that came about, and like the story of writing a successful op-ed, which is tricky. So we'll celebrate that. And then we're going to hear from Gary Stewart, who has literally had over 150 letters to the editor published. So how do you do that? We're going to learn from Gary about how to do it successfully and how to do it as part of how we, try to convince people about the need for clean energy and the clean energy transition in a just way for health. So we'll kind of try to learn from Gary to bring that tool more into our community's toolbox. And then we will actually use a template that Gary wrote that is about the Polluter Pay Climate Superfund that needs a lot of help right now. And depending on our time, we might even try to submit those to our own local paper in real time. Then we'll have some time to discuss and we'll talk about what else is going on. So that's our plan for the hour. And starting with our North Star, so Climate Health Now Action Fund is an affiliated organization to Climate Health Now, but Climate Health Now Action Fund is a 501c4 fiscally sponsored organization. And what that allows us to do is grassroots lobbying, which there's limitations to do under a 501c3. So the missions are very similar, you'll notice, but what Climate Health Now Action Fund does is organize and activate the California health community to advocate for equitable systems level climate action. That's what we're aiming to do. And Amanda, if you wouldn't mind, I emailed Gary the Zoom.
He is on. Welcome, Gary.
Oh,
yep.
Good.
We're good.
Thank you. So what I'd love to do now is go around, and if this is your first meeting or your first meeting in a long time, if you want to say your name, if you want to share your pronouns, where you live, and what kind of work you do, that would be great, or used to do, or are training to do. So maybe Casey, do you want to share?
Sure, yeah. My name is Casey Gahn. I use she, her pronouns. I am currently a third year medical student, just started third year, and I live in San Bernardino and work in Loma Linda.
Awesome. Glad you're here. Yay. Third year. That's pretty intense. Good job. How about, let's see. Catherine, do you want to share?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Catherine Connors, she, her pronouns. I work at Stanford Medicine. I lead a team where we meet with investigators and study teams to help them build their participant recruitment strategy.
Cool. Cool. That's an interesting aspect of community organizing.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah, it's all about getting research participation, both from Stanford patients and also in the community. And I live in East Palo Alto, work at Stanford.
Awesome. Welcome. Glad you're here.
Thanks.
Good. And then maybe who else? Alexandra or Allie. Do you want to say hi?
Hello, yeah, Allie, she, her pronouns. I'm a PhD student in public health. I live in Oakland, but I'm constantly going back and forth between UC Berkeley and UCSF. So yeah, I'm kind of all over the place. But yeah, nice to meet you all.
Yeah, you too. And you're doing your PhD, right?
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. Cool. Welcome.
Thanks.
Glad you're here. And anybody else want to say hi, introduce themselves? Angelina, it's been a while.
Yeah, I'm able to make this meeting. I'm excited. I'm Angelina Crenzian. She, her. I'm an allergist in Woodland and Davis here in the Valley. And I'm also an SSVMS board member now, which is our local medical society. And so that's exciting.
Yeah, good for you. Yeah, we should talk about CMA's silence on polluter pays at some point.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of competing priorities in the world right now. So this is making it challenging for sure.
That is truth. Okay, so I think anybody else want to introduce themselves?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I missed the beginning. Are we just anyone or just new people?
Yeah, anyone. We're good because it's a small group right now. Yeah.
So I'm Roz Harder. I'm a medical social worker in Oakland in oncology. And what else? That's me.
Welcome. I'm glad you're here.
Nice to meet you, those of you I haven't met.
Yeah. Roz does a lot of our culture club too. Anybody else want to say hi?
I'll say hi. I don't know if you can see me. I'm scarfing my food.
Enjoy it.
Laura, she, her,
Yeah.
PA, PA at Kaiser Oakland, PD neurosurgery. And yeah, Roz and I went to lunch recently. So networking can happen off these meetings. And
Yeah.
hi, Roz.
That's cool. That's great. Great. Okay. Well, anybody else want to say hi before we move on?
How about Gary?
Gary. Yeah. Might be on mute still. Gary, can you come off mute? We'll come back because I'm gonna introduce Gary shortly. So get ready,
Okay.
Gary.
I'll do it when I'll give you a brief rundown of that when I give.
Okay, that sounds good. All right. Well, welcome to our new members. Welcome back to our old members. We're glad you're here. And I'm going to pass it to Michelle to talk about one of the campaigns that Climate Health Now Action Fund is working hard to support.
Yes. Hello, everyone. I'm Michelle Fontana. I'm a registered nurse, and this year I've taken on co-leading Climate Health Now's polluter accountability efforts. First off, just thank you so much to Ashley and Amanda. It's been an amazing experience already. I've learned so much. You guys are just very gentle teachers. But this is a huge bill we're working on. There's a giant coalition working on it with us. And what it does is this bill is going to create a very meticulously detailed program to assess the fees that the top fossil fuel polluters have to assess their emissions, and then use that with attribution science to do the math and create a super fund of money that the state of California can use to pay climate damages to people, like the $250 billion that the LA fires will cost, and also all sorts of designated, well thought out mitigation climate adaptation projects moving forward. So I do want to put a plug for an attribution science talk that's going to be fascinating tomorrow. Yes, so this bill is huge. It's passed last year in New York and Vermont, similar bills, but this will take the California EPA and empower them to do the study, understand, do the math, and then get a large, much needed bunch of money for our state. And it dictates how it will be used, 40% of which it will go directly to disadvantaged communities. So it is a very smart bill, a very needed bill in this era, and will help us to adapt to the future that we know is coming and is kind of already here. So what another thing we know about this is it is really popular. So this bill, if you look at the next slide, it's, you know, it would pass. If this was put to a vote, it would pass. California would voters would definitely agree, but what we're seeing is this bill is kind of being held up. This is not being voted on. This is a direct legislative effort. It's been introduced in both the California Senate and the Assembly, and it needs to navigate its way through different committees. And right now it's held up in the Judiciary Committee. And if it's overwhelmingly popular, overwhelmingly needed, it's going to solve California's budget crisis. Why would it be held up? And really, just as the fossil fuel industry has done since the 70s, when their own scientists said, hey, we got a problem, hydrocarbons are going to cause climate change, they have been denied, disinformation. So this bill, like any other bill that would be similar to this, is going to be mired in disinformation. So we are working very hard to get it past that. The disinformation, the usual litany of it will increase gas prices, it will kill jobs, it will put companies out of business. All of this is false. And there's a really great study that Claire Brown at UC Berkeley did. She's an economics professor. So anybody who's interested, there's a great study about it. But yes, it won't kill jobs. It won't raise gas prices. And it won't put fossil fuel industry out of business. It's only 5% of their net income is the cap. That's the maximum amount any single company could pay. So it's a very well thought out bill. And we are really hoping it passes. It was supposed to be heard in both the Senate and Assembly Judiciary Committee. And the authors delayed that. They didn't think they had the votes. So, and we're kind of going assembly member and senator by senator and trying to get those votes. So right now, the Senate Judiciary Committee is 13 senators and the Assembly is 12 assembly members, and they hold this bill. If we can get enough yeses, it will pass on, and it would need to get it through the budget and then on to a vote on the general floor. But right now it's held up. So we've been trying to make calls, emails, reach out to these key target delegates, and that's part of where our work is, but there's obviously the letter to the editors will help. But yeah, the kind of just this bill it's common sense, it's well thought out, it will be popular, it will be so needed, but there are powerful interests that are opposing it. So
yeah. Thank you, Michelle.
Yes.
That was a great summary. Does anybody have any questions about the content of it that we can try to answer? Would it be possible? Yeah.
I just want to say that was so helpful, the information that Michelle just provided. I really didn't understand the value and just everything. I just have such a better understanding now of this bill and why it's worth supporting. So thank you.
Yeah. Woohoo. Hard. There's so many things to pay attention to and listen to. So having a really simple, clear overview is awesome. Yeah, and that is what, Michelle, your little flag, that's what the letters to the editor can do too, is to give that really concise overview, which we want more people to have. And what you said, Michelle, of if this were to be a ballot measure in California, like based on the polling, it would pass. I mean, come on, like this kills me. And we will talk about the state of it, and like these 25 people could make or break it, you know, the representatives on the Judiciary Committee. So we're trying to break through to them, and we would love if everybody on this call could help in that process. So yeah. And then I saw in the chat, it looks like Casey was asking if anybody could drop the link to the article, the economic impact article that Claire Brown wrote. I would love that too. I haven't actually read it. So if anybody could drop that in the chat, that would be really cool. We actually were thinking about inviting the author to educate us, which is what basically how the meeting tomorrow came together. Is a lot of people were saying, how does climate attribution science work? What is it based on? And the speaker tomorrow is kind of a superstar now. He was like quoted in the New York Times all over the media last week, talking about climate attribution science, which is part of how this bill will decide how much polluters have to pay. But we could ask Claire Brown to teach us, because these are, you know, things we all need to get really confident in speaking about. So I saw that in the chat. And then Lori said, you called 6 assembly members. And then do we need to call state senators as well? Yes, Lori, that is part of what we're going to do at the end. Yes, exactly. Great question. And Bill said it was supposed to be voted on. It has been held. So instead of letting it go without sufficient votes to win, the state assembly member and the state senator who have co-introduced it together, they, instead of letting it get voted down, they held it, and they didn't put it on the docket for the committee to hear, to give themselves and the coalition, us, more time to build support. So it's like mission critical that we win the support of, you know, 51% of each of these committees, and that's what we'll call about too, and that's what the letters to the editor will also be about. And then, yep, Michelle already said that. Yep. Amanda's working on the report. Thank you. Cool. I think we're caught up in the chat. We have time for maybe if there's one more question, and then we'll go to the next thing. You good? Okay. Thank you, Michelle. And oh, actually, just a little heads up. So Michelle's on one of CHN Action Fund's advocacy teams about polluter accountability. And Michelle and I are going to Sacramento on Tuesday because the California Environmental Justice Alliance is having a lobby day, and this is one of their priority bills. So we're going to be representing the health community, and we'll try to make you proud. So I'm going to pass it to you, Brenda.
Hi, everybody. So I'm Brenda. I'm a comprehensive ophthalmologist in LA, and I think there was a notice in a CHN email newsletter about this op-ed that was published in the Sacramento Bee by me and Cindy Hawk, both CHN members. This was published last week, and so I was asked to talk a little bit about it and share the history of how this came to be. So lots of people and relationships made this happen. It actually started with the gentleman who's on your left here. This is Jonathan Patz. He is an MD, MPH at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, but actually way more than that. So apparently he was recruited years and years ago by Cindy Hawk, who's here as well on this op-ed, when she was over there. So Dr. Patz was recruited to be the inaugural director of the Global Health Institute there. And now he focuses fully on climate and health and on clinical work. And interestingly enough, he served as a lead author of the UN IPCC, which shared the 2007 Nobel Peace Prize with Al Gore. So super cool. So way back in January of this year, in response to the LA fires, he reached out to Cindy to co-author an op-ed initially to be targeted for publication to the LA Times and to the SACB, and it was supposed to discuss climate change and health in the context of this very recent and very devastating event here in Los Angeles. And it wasn't supposed to mention any specific legislation. They approached the LA Times, and the LA Times rejected it outright. And Cindy said, you know, this wasn't very surprising given significant changes to how a lot of major newspapers in this country are being run, including the LA Times. On the other hand, the SACB did want to publish it and asked Cindy and Jonathan to mention the Polluters Pay Superfund bill. And so this whole time, while this is going on, Cindy had been sitting in calls with the coalition, this very coalition that, you know, Ashley and Michelle were mentioning, advocating for this particular bill. And Theo from the Center of Biological Diversity had mentioned during a call that any efforts to publish op-eds, so op-eds, not LTEs, should be coordinated for maximal impact to the media. And so initially the coalition was waiting for the authors of the bill to write an op-ed. And so Cindy and Jonathan waited for a while, but when it looked like that wasn't going to happen, the coalition gave its okay to Cindy and Jonathan to send their op-ed to the SACB. And so at that point, another change happened. So Jonathan decided that it would be more powerful if both authors on this piece were both from California. And Cindy thought that someone from LA would be a good addition. And so enter me. And so that's how I got involved in this really cool effort. And so from then on, it was pretty straightforward. Cindy and I sent it in, already knowing that the op-ed was already, you know, agreed to be published and with some minor revisions. And the final product is, as you see here. And so, you know, given that story, I really claim no credit at all for making this happen. I'll obviously want to give ample credit to both Cindy Hawk and Jonathan Pat to make this happen, and really to the you know, many deep and strong relationships that led to this, you know, relationships to the broader coalition and all these relationships, you know, Cindy and Jonathan had for years in the climate and health world to get this published. So I see this as a success story, and how working closely with other groups, either in the form of an official coalition or more informally with others with their specific skill sets, with their specific resources, can really amplify any one individual's efforts. And so I think that's the biggest lesson for this whole experience. And the other major point I want to make here is that, you know, writing a message, whether it be an op-ed or an LTE or some sort of message to the media, can be a way to take a stand. And so if this sounds like an intriguing way to take action with, you know, your particular interests and skills and resources that either you have already or can be fostered and supported by CHN and other, you know, powerful resources, then CHN can make it happen. So that's all I got to add here.
Yay! Congratulations. I think I heard you say maybe 3 times about the relationships, that's kind of what led to this being possible. And I just think we can't overstate how important that is. So huge round of applause. Does anybody have, we have time for like maybe 1 or 2 questions of Brenda about the process experience. They call this earned media. So this was hard won and earned media, which is really awesome. Yeah, Amanda.
Sorry, I'm staying off video because I'm cramming my lunch into my mouth. But I'm curious, Brenda, like what edits did they have? Like was it just like grammatical, stylistic, or was it more content wise?
By the time I got brought into it, it was very minor things and barely anything at all. Once I got added to the email chains and, you know, was connected with the SACB editor, it really was, okay, well, you know, make sure that you, it was like signing consents or, you know, just saying like, oh, this is okay, we give you permission. And does this look good? Does your little bio look good? And that was really it. So again, I claim no credit whatsoever to have my name included. Cindy was very nice and said, you know, you did something because you added your name during a time where adding your name to things can be fraught with, you know, this, that, or the other. It's in this crazy world that we live in now. But yeah, by the time that I was added, very, very little was being changed to the actual content.
Yeah. I also just want to highlight and thank that Brenda is on Climate Health Now's statewide leadership team, and we are really grateful for that. So you've been moving forward the strategy for years at this point. So
I've learned a lot. I came from really, very little understanding of even how climate impacts health. And now I feel that, yeah, I have resources and I can provide some power and I get to join arms with so many other cool people too. So it gets better and better every day.
awesome. Thank you, Brenda.
Can
Wonderful.
I add one brief thing?
Sure, please.
Brenda, I talked with Cindy yesterday about the possibility of broadcasting this really excellent piece of work. This writing is just stellar. To get that published elsewhere, if you and Cindy can get an understanding from the Sacramento Bee that X amount of time has lapsed, which would then allow it to be published somewhere else, you can pitch it to other outlets, small, probably not major papers like LA Times, they're not going to do it, but smaller regional papers, and a lot of people on this call might have their local paper. They could pitch it there. You just have to inform them that it was previously published. But a lot of the smaller papers are not that concerned about that. So this
An
this
awesome
could get
idea.
could get multiplied, and it really deserves it.
Well,
And
thank
then
you
we'll
so much, Gary.
That's a great idea. So I am excited to introduce Gary Stewart, who's one of Climate Health Now's newer members on the newer side. We have Cindy Hawk to thank for being the connector. They met at lunch, as I understand it, in Orange County. Is that right?
We were at a launch party for Kathleen Treseder, who was running for the city council seat of the city of Irvine, which turned out to be a successful run, and that was great. So Cindy and I happened to be sitting next to each other at that launch party.
Which is really cool. A nice origin story. So I got to speak with Gary because like Margie and some other people are saying, Gary's got all these amazing skills. He's published over 150 letters to the editor. And that's no small task. So Gary is you're partially retired internal medicine physician and lives in Laguna Beach. Is that right?
Yeah, nearly retired. Pretty close.
It sounds perfect. And Gary's going to share with us what he's found, what's the recipe for success in writing letters to the editor as a way to influence our community and decision makers and, kind of lift up what we think are important policies and campaigns in our communities. So I'll pass it to you, Gary.
Okay. I think I'll start with kind of giving a tiny short little pep talk about getting letters to the editor. You think about it, how often do you have an opportunity to talk directly to somebody who is in a position to influence where messages go and how broadly they're sent out? I mean, if you submit a letter, that editor of that outlet is going to look at it, and they count them up. They keep track of what is coming in, whether it's in favor of something or against something, how much attention they get on certain topics. And that all adds up little by little to influencing how much attention and how many resources that outlet is going to give to any given topic. Are they going to have their reporter sent out to something that relates to that topic, for example, this kind of thing. So every letter you write, even if it doesn't get published, I want to really emphasize this, the fact that it gets published or not is not whether it was successful or not. If you write a letter, and this group, say, writes 5 letters to some outlet, and they normally don't get any on that subject, and it's coming from all over the state, they see that and they notice that, and that's possibly going to impact, where they are going to place their resources. So there's an impact there. It's kind of, think of it as like going to a rally. Like, you're not on the stage, but when the news wants to talk about what happened to this rally, the number one thing they always mention is, well, how many people were there? Well, you were there, and so that number becomes part of the message, and the newspapers pay attention to that. So in addition to when you submit your letters to any outlet, you also should send a copy to your elected representative or to other elected representatives that are relevant to what the topic is. So for example, if you're going to write a letter about pollution and how sources of pollution, people who are creating pollution, should be held in some fashion responsible for it, which is what Polluters Pay is all about, then you can copy that letter to the members of the judiciary committees, for example, especially if it's somebody in your district, because they're going to see that. And in addition, your own elected representative, if they're mentioned in a letter, they keep track of that. They're very much on top of what's getting published about them in newspapers. So these are ways that you can kind of look at writing a letter as something that's accomplished a lot more than perhaps you previously thought. And then I would also say that there's not a single person on this call who can't write a letter. Anyone who thinks, oh, I can't write a letter, that's wrong. Any conversation you have with anyone about any climate health related topic, just in your own conversation of 5 minutes, you've probably written 3 letters. I mean, you just need to say what you think and what you believe, put it on paper. It doesn't need to be long. It doesn't need to be flowery or brilliant. It just needs to go. And if it's 3 sentences where you say, I'm writing about this, I think this is a good idea and it's going to affect me or my family or my community or whatever, that's an effective message. So every letter has effectiveness, whether it gets published or not. And it may help get something else published, even if yours isn't. Let me mention briefly too about selecting an article. What are the kinds of articles that are likely to get something published about them? Okay. Number one, if you're writing about an editorial board opinion in a paper, they always publish letters about that. That's the number one. Otherwise, it's front page stories, especially if they have a photograph with it. It's a big splash if it's photographed. Major articles, longer ones. Articles that are written by the staff of that paper is important, rather than something they are publishing from the Associated Press or somewhere. They're not as motivated, not as invested in that. And articles that have local interest to that outlet. So if you're going to be talking about something that's broader, at least it still has that connection with the readers of that particular newspaper. And also just articles that you have a strong reaction to. I mean, if you have a strong reaction when you're writing an article where you think something was really dumb or you think something was really great, that passion is going to show in what you write. It just naturally comes through. So if you're writing about what you really care about, that's going to communicate conviction. All right. If you want your article to get published, if you're thinking about getting it published and you want to focus on that and enhance that possibility, sooner is better. Within 1 day, if you write a letter about an article that's 5 days old, it's just not gonna get published. They pretty much select the letters within the first day or two. So the quicker is better. Make sure you follow the rules for that outlet. If it says 150 words, do not submit a letter that's 151 words, because they have word count and they're just not going to look at it. You don't want to go on a rant. You need to be measured. You can use strong language, but a thesaurus comes in really handy, because if you want to say something is ridiculous, okay, then you use the thesaurus and you come up with unwise or imprudent, or you can use strong language. But like I said, word choice is useful, and I often just pull up a thesaurus and find something that fits more exactly what I'm trying to say. Lastly, I'll mention one other thing. When you submit a letter, if there's something you think the editor should know that's not in the letter, you can add that and just say note to editor, and you can say something that will highlight your letter to them. So you can say, for example, well, I grew up in that city, or whatever. Establish a connection, even if it's not in the letter. If you can put it in the letter, great. But even if it's not there, you can always add a little something to the editor to clue them in, and it may make your letter stand out. Ashley, is that enough to kind of get us started here with what I'm going to be addressing? Are we going to try and do that template now? Is that about time for that?
Yeah, it wouldn't be CHN community if we didn't try to make use of it right now. Yeah. So thank you, Gary. That was a great overview, and I mean, we're really excited to learn from you because this is not something that we've done a lot of, and we want to do more of it. There's so many opportunities. So I think you covered all of the kind of headlines of, I mean, for me, one learning out of this was what Gary said is that because we were thinking initially that we could try to write letters to the editor to amplify the op-ed that Brenda and Cindy got published. And Gary was like, no, it's over 3 days old. There's no way that there's going to be letters to the editor about that article because the cycle is so fast. So, we're learning. But out of this conversation and the conversation with Margie and Brenda and Cindy related to their climate health organizing fellowship, and then learning from Gary, who's worked also with the Citizen Climate Lobby, we're gonna try to continue this skill set within Climate Health Now's work. And Gary has volunteered to be sort of our resident writer in chief. And so out of our conversation yesterday, what we want to share with everybody right now is what Gary has offered is, and please, chime in, Gary, as you see fit. But if you see an article in a paper, especially in California, and it could be like your city's paper or your area's paper, or maybe something at the state level, maybe national, I don't know. But if it's related to pollution, especially carbon pollution, but pollution that is harming people, if you send us an email linked to that article, and this email is going to be live by Tuesday, not yet, but we're rolling out this idea, then we will connect it to Gary, who has offered to bring his skills to bear. And he said, I like the way you called it, a letter writing invitation. So Gary will set us up with the bullet points and a template related to whatever article it is we see. So I think there's going to be lots of opportunity whenever you're reading an article about, they're trying to build a new gas plant wherever. If you send that to us, and like I said, this email, writing@climatehealthnow-actionfund.org, we're getting it up and running. So save it, please, but it won't be live until after Cinco de Mayo. Then we can start to, to publish more of this and to help, try to influence ideas and policies across the state through using Gary's skill set, and kind of everybody could sort of be on the team in terms of looking for opportunities. And this is something that you did with CCL, and I think this is a cool idea. So any questions about that? Did I mess up the description, Gary?
No, that sounds great. It would really, the letter writing invitation is set up to make it really easy to participate, really easy to become an activist. It tells you what the topic is. It gives you several ideas of how you might approach it. It provides a link to the form for that newspaper that you can fill out when you submit your letter, or the email address for submitting letters to that outlet. So it's all there. And all you need to do is look at that and see what the topic is. There will be the article itself available as well if you want to really dig and read the whole article and get your own ideas from that. But even if you don't read the full article, we're going to give you enough information where you can fire out a letter, in 5 minutes that will add on, pile on, this topic and inform readers all over the state about this polluters pay legislation. You're going to definitely mention the legislation, the name of it, and hammer on this concept of fairness and justice and accountability, because all across the political spectrum, people are in favor of accountability. They're in favor of fairness. So we're going to try and make it easy for people to participate. And anybody who sees any article that they're reading where it's a pollution issue that's harming health, we want to hear about it. And maybe we'd end up with, an invitation once a week. Maybe if we're doing well, we can have an invitation about once a week. And if you do 2 of those a month, not every one of them or whatever, then that's going to be a lot of letters all over the state. And broadcast about this legislation and inform people about it, such that it's in their mind, polluters pay, it's a fair thing, it's accountability. Then when they, if they ever come across it at another time, they've got, a base of information that's going to make sense to them.
Awesome. I think, let's see. So Bill has a question, and then we'll talk this template that we're going to use together right now in real time. So Bill, your question is, if somebody subscribed to a local paper, is there a way to access what they have published on their front page? Do you want to take that, Gary?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure I understand the question. Typically online, the articles that are under the news section of that online presence typically are going to be the ones. They're pretty much organized in terms of importance and priority. So the articles that are going to be on front page of a written paper are typically going to be in the opening web page under the news section. Sometimes they'll have an entertainment thing or something else on the front page of the website, which is not necessarily on the front page of the newspaper, but usually the news section is focused on what's on page 1 of the news. Does that answer the question? Am I addressing what you asked?
You got your mute button, Bill? Might be looking for it. I can try it. There you go.
I was just asking about if you don't subscribe to the newspaper, is there a way to get the information? I understand how to get the information if you subscribe to the newspaper, but
well, it kind of depends. If you go to the web, I mean, these are kind of like in the weeds tricks. When you go to a website of a newspaper, sometimes you can get to the article and it'll be a delay of a few seconds where the article is up before the message comes up and says, oh, paywall, you need to pay to see this or whatever. During those few seconds when that article is up and the paywall hasn't been established yet, if you hit save as a PDF, if you get that in before the paywall comes up, then you can save it as a PDF and you'll have the full text, which then you can copy and paste from, or you can save as a document and attach it to any emails that you send. So that's a trick I've used on occasion. If anyone is sending us an article that we want to get letters written about, that's probably going to be somebody who has access to that article, so they can just save it as a PDF without having to, it's not difficult. Some things are just open, as a link. Some papers don't have a paywall. Most of them these days do. They have to survive. We're hoping to be able to provide the article text to any letter invitation that we send out. That's what we're hoping to do.
Yeah. So y'all want to give this a try? The bill is on life support. We got to get it out of the ICU. So I put in the chat 12:42. So it's like Gary's called it the letter invitation. The invitation is to us to use it. And the template is there. And so what I'm imagining is that we go to your local paper, like real local. I'm in Berkeley, so I'm going to go to the Berkeley side because it's very tiny. But any local paper that you have in mind, we're going to do this right now together. So go to your local paper and then search in opinion. And what we're going to try to find is how to submit.
There's another method for that, Ashley.
Yeah.
Another method you can try is you can just Google, you can just search the phrase submit letter to the editor and then name the outlet.
Oh, sure.
So
yeah.
You can write submit letter to the editor, Sacramento Bee. And typically what will come up in one of the first few matches will be that submit a letter to the Sacramento Bee. And that will either take you to the web page where you submit the letter, fill out the form, or it'll provide you, sometimes even in the title of the hit, it'll mention that there's an email, these letters at sacb.org or whatever. you know, and yeah, and that way you can just send an email directly.
So yeah, just what I did. So who's gonna try this right now? All right. So let's all go to your whatever your favorite browser is, and just put in, submit letter to your local paper, whatever it is, and let's actually do it together right now. Oh, nice. Laura's looking at the Oakland side. Perfect. So I'm going to stop sharing. And does anybody need help mechanically with trying to use the template? Hey, we should have had some catchy music going. So much to think about.
Jeopardy, some Jeopardy theme.
Do you recommend sending it like in an email as the script of the email, or in an attached Google Doc or PDF? You may have mentioned this and I totally missed it.
If you're sending it as an email, then it's just going to be like any other regular email, and you're going to just type in. But you do need, if you may not need that may not provide you the rules that the outlet has.
Mm-hmm.
So the most standard rules, and if you follow these rules, you'll basically be meeting the criteria for pretty much any outlet. If it's less than 150 words, which typically your letters are going to be shorter than that. 150 words is quite a few. That's a pretty serious letter. Some outlets let you send in 250 words, which is quite long, but some of the local papers are looking for fill. They're looking for, as many words as they can get.
Go for it, man.
But if you are under 150 words, number one, and also at the end of it, you need to provide your name, your address, your telephone number, and your email. Now that may seem like a lot, and some people may not be comfortable giving all that information, but I assure you that the newspaper will only publish your name and city. Now I've had 150 letters published in 29 states, and I have never once had anyone contact me to give me a hard time about the letter, or give me a rant or threaten, or I don't know, whatever, ever once. So Banksy says if you're not in trouble, then you're not a threat. So the crazies don't consider me a threat, which is great. So that means you don't have to worry about that. It's just gonna be your name and your city, and don't concern yourself with that.
Any other questions that Gary can field, teach us?
Are people seeing that I put in, like, there are possible phrases you can choose from to construct this letter?
Oh, Berkeley Pat. I don't know that one. Good.
Typically, I would not write a letter invitation as proscriptive as that. I would give you phrases, I would give you ideas, approaches, or key topics to mention, like the polluters pay law, or something specific to the particular article we're responding to. But I want the letters to have your personality. The letters need you in it. This is not a big letter writing broadcast thing where the same letter goes out to a million places. I mean, these are letters you have written. You need to care. You need to use your own wording in your own brain, and that comes through. That letter readers, these editors, they can tell that. They can smell when somebody really cares. The wording is key. So.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Great. Jillian's working on the East Bay Times. Catherine's working on Palo Alto Daily. I love it. This is great. So if this gets published, let us know, by the way. when it gets published, let us know.
Yeah, if it does get published, definitely let Ashley know, because that helps motivate folks, and people are excited. And in the Citizens Climate Lobby group I'm in, we ended up with about 3 people who really took letter writing seriously. They got addicted to it. They love it. They work to get yet another letter published. Some of them are up in, I think Jonathan is up to like 50 letters or something that he's had published. I mean, you know, you kind of get the bug. And the more of it you do, like anything, you know, like drawing blood, like, you know, virtually any activity you do, the more of it you do, the better you get. So you can write a letter. I mean, I can write a letter now in like 5 minutes, and it used to take me an hour when I first got started because my method was very methodical and kind of clunky, you know, and now I've honed it down, and the same process would happen for you, I'm sure. If you write 10 letters, you're going to be way better at that 11th letter than the first one.
Amanda?
Oh, I just wanted to confirm, Gary, in your experience or anybody else's, my impression is with a letter to the editor, you will not know, like they do not notify you if they are publishing versus an op-ed where they're working, like the editor is working with you. Is that your experience too, or do they sometimes tell you we're going to run it?
It varies on the outlet. For example, the New York Times, I mean, I've had three or four letters published in the New York Times. They are very particular, and they contact you. They send you what they're going to publish, and they may take a liberty to, you know, shorten it or change a phrase or whatever, but then you need to agree to it, right? I've never said, oh, no, you can't do that. I mean, I'm happy to have them publish my letter. I'm not going to quibble about it. The message is always preserved. So I haven't found reason to object. So the New York Times is the LA Times editor currently will send an email just saying, I'm going to publish it, right? So some of them will let you know, but not always.
The last one ended, the olive oil.
Hey, Hannah. We can hear you, Hannah. So I think maybe if you want to wrap up sending your article now, and then we were going to turn to one other opportunity slash ask for everybody to participate in, which is calling. Oh wait, I saw in the chat. So are we only sending LTEs about articles published in the last day or so? So Roz, the goal, like the best practice is yes, that we will, you know, keep our eyes peeled. And if you see something about pollution causing health harm, send it to us once we get that email up and running. The writing at Climate Health Now action-actionfund.org. But in this case, we're just putting it out there without it being anchored to something, which is not ideal. So but that's just the situation we're in. Was that your question?
Also, Ashley, there's a lesson learned here.
Yeah.
When you send a letter, you will not get back from the outlet a message saying, you know, that letter sucked. I can't believe you sent us that. You know, don't send us anymore because it was terrible. No, you're not going to get that. There's no downside to this at all. It just feels good to send it. There's no pushback. There's nothing negative. The worst that can happen is they don't publish it. You know, but like I said, there are many reasons to send this letter in, even if it doesn't get published. So there's just no downside at all.
Yep. Yeah. So okay, so we're gonna transition. So hopefully you have sent it or will send it right now. The other thing that we would love people to join us in right now is calling the Judiciary Committee members. So I'm going to screen share a script. God willing, I can find the tab. Hold on. And we have the script for you, and we were thinking hopefully people can actually call right now. Can you see this slide? Yeah. So this is a different script. So this is about the same theme. But if you would be willing to choose one of these assembly members on the right, these are the ones that are kind of more swing voters on the committee member. There's I think 12 or 13. So if you could choose one or all of them, if one of these are your reps, call that person first. But the idea is if you would be willing to go off mute or to go onto mute, call whichever assembly member you can right now and ask them as a person in the health community. Oh, Brenda, Ooh, Brenda. Yes, please call again. We should talk about that. Call them and say, as a health person, I'm asking them to represent me by voting yes and supporting the Polluters Pay Climate Superfund bill. So we'll take like 2 minutes, and it can be so quick to just go ahead and call up this number, mute yourself, and then we'll come back in literally 2 minutes to wrap up. Allie, yeah, I think our calls mean the most if it's to our own rep, that's for sure. Amanda's calling now, that's great. And if they get a ton of calls, I think there's still like a sense that, oh, a lot of people care about this, which is our aspiration. So, but yeah, the goal, the fact that Brenda, you're in Zebra, that is great. And what we're gonna be trying to do now is also schedule more meetings with them. Nice job, Angelina. Nice, Davis Enterprise. I love it. Okay, so we'll just take 1 more minute for a phone call.
Well, I just spoke to somebody at Pacheco's office.
Cool.
Down.
Wonderful.
Nice person said, I will pass this along to the representative.
That's
Okay.
right. And I see Lori, you called all 6 on Monday. Wonderful. Zebra. Oh yeah. Yeah, they don't always ask what district we're in. So if you're not in their district, just don't volunteer if they don't ask. Thank you, Margie. SF Chronicle. Come on. I love it. Okay, so I'm going to give it 1 more minute here. And then we'll go to Amanda to wrap us up. Yay. Thank you, Casey. So this is what it can feel like, right? But this is what we're trying to do together. Don't you love that? All right, Amanda, we're going to go to you to wrap us up on what's coming up.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I just put it in the chat. I just called and did not get asked my district. And I think what's really interesting about this, Allie, too, is call this what we might, our lack of democratic processes here, but when it goes to these committees, not all of us have a representative on these committees. So I think that builds the case for feeling like we have a sort of a right to, not sort of, very much a right to talk to people, even if we're not their constituents in these situations. Awesome. Okay, I have 1 minute. Ashley, could I trouble you to put things in the chat while I go through them? Awesome. Okay, so if you are like, yes, I am ready to go, I want to get involved in more legislative advocacy work with Climate Health Now and Climate Health Now Action Fund, we're putting a link in the chat to how you can do that. And then we've got a bunch of upcoming educational and action-oriented meetings. We already shared tomorrow. We have this climate attribution science for health professionals talk. We have something like 100 people registered, including Claire Brown, who is the economist. So perhaps we will have an opportunity to talk to her if she attends tomorrow. We have our next new member welcome call coming up on May 15th. We would love to see new or old members there. All are welcome. We are going to have our first Clean Team Action Hour on May 20th from 12:30 to 1:15, which will be somewhat similar to this, actually, in that we're going to be talking about some bills and then taking collective action together in real time. And then rounding it out the day after that, we've got another educational event on natural sequestration and what does it have to do with health. Because one of the bills we are working on this year is about natural sequestration.
And what does it mean?
And what does it mean? And what does it have to do with our health? Exactly.
I love it. Okay, so those are all of the upcoming events. Yeah, tomorrow is going to be super exciting. I mean, all of these are, but the person who's speaking to us tomorrow, he was quoted in like every news outlet you ever saw last week about his study that came out in Nature. So that hopefully will be really fun. And I hope, Bill, you come because you have a lot of questions. We all do. but especially about how climate attribution science works. So he is the person to ask and learn more with. So thank you all. It's really good to see you all. I'm glad that you joined us and that we are together because times are rough. So feeling alone makes it worse. And we're glad to be together. Yeah. Thank you. And thank you so much to Brenda and Gary and Michelle for contributing and making this a really interesting and fun meeting. So good to see you. Hope to see you all tomorrow. Okay, bye.